Okay, I am going to ask one more interpreter to join us, and this is David Violet, who is a conference interpreter and IEC officer, and I see people smiling because many of you know him. David is going to share his wish list with us. David.
Thank you, Naomi, and thank you, Klaus and Andrea and Sheila, for your excellent talks. I might refer to them. I'm going to share my screen, if I may, and I hope I am allowed to do that. Is it working
Hey,
now?
yes,
Yes?
yes.
My take on this, and actually I may not have read very clearly. I was really hoping the platforms would be here today because we are delivering messages to them. And so much of what I'm going to say today, I think you might find a bit elementary, but I would like to go through sound and all of these things from the point of view of the interpreter. And I think that most people are a little bit like me in that you can tell them, hey, do something, and they're going to think, well, why? And so what I'm going to aim at here is to try to target the people who have control over these things and to tell them why interpreters need what they need. So you are all interpreters and you know this, but I hope this will also help you to in your explaining, because as Sheila so correctly said, we have a whole bunch of education to do, some kind of a public awareness campaign, and we're all carrying out such a little campaign alone with our clients. So let's look at what interpreters need, and I hope you all agree with me. First of all, the platforms need to know that the interpreters need to hear the other interpreters. I don't know if when they designed these platforms, they actually went, some have told me that they have, into a on-site meeting and watched what's happening, but we are always listening to each other. If I'm listening to the Chinese booth going into English, I want to know how they've put something in English. I think it's very useful to me. It's crucial to know what the other people are hearing. That's one point. Another point is we need to be able to see our booth partner. And that is because we need to be able to basically for the handover. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about the handover, but I think we need to explain to them that it's being able to see each other. And this is what we practically all are doing anyway, right? We're getting a FaceTime or another Zoom meeting or somehow so that we can see each other. And if the platform people were here, I would tell them, imagine that the keynote speaker, I've agreed with my partner, we're going to change it exactly at the hour, and that way there's no confusion whatsoever. But the keynote speaker starts speaking or looks, he or she opens the microphone 15 seconds before we're going to change. Well, we need to be able to look at each other and say, okay, look, why would I do these 15 seconds and cut off and then you take over, so why don't you just jump in 15 seconds early? And this is the kind of thing that has to be understood immediately and with entire certainty for everything to go smoothly. To have the two interpreters, booth mates, who are working in the same language pair, unable to see each other, it's a little bit like building a wall between the pilot and the co-pilot of an airplane, and they suddenly run into a situation where they need to make split-second decisions and they can't see each other. My third point here, and this is the one I'm going to dig into more, is why we need to have higher quality sound. The other participants, the technicians perhaps, the organizers, they will put on the headset and they will listen and they go, it sounds fine to me. And it will sound fine to any ordinary speaker, but we need better sound than the ordinary speaker. And why is that? I'll just mention in passing that we need ISO compliant sound. I am definitely not a technical person. I was very impressed with what Andrea said, very impressed actually. It's very interesting, it's new to me, and I think it's going to be very useful. So we need to have, we have a couple of disadvantages actually. And this is something I think the technicians and platforms and the people who are designing these things need to know. We have disadvantages when we are listening. First of all, an auditory disadvantage and then a cognitive disadvantage. The auditory is that we are speaking at the same time as we listen. And imagine we could tell the people this. Let's say that I have a speaker who is really emphasizing a very important point, and that speaker raises the volume of her voice to a really high pitch to really make a great point. And I, as interpreter, decide, well, that's probably my best way of also emphasizing that, so I'm going to increase my volume a little bit. But I'm getting to that point a little bit later, and now let's say she has, in order to provide some contrast, in her next sentence she says, nevertheless, very quietly. And here I am on the sentence before trying to emphasize this point through volume, and I have to hear that quiet voice above my own voice. This is the kind of thing I think that people need to know so that they know why we are at this disadvantage and why we have a higher requirement for higher quality sound. So I've covered the auditory part. Now I'd like to look at the cognitive part. Our attention is divided between various things. First of all, we have to discover the meaning of what somebody is actually saying. Let's say that somebody says, hey, let's have lunch at 12:30 a.m. I'm going to have to make a cognitive effort to say, okay, obviously he meant p.m., and so let's keep going with that. So there's a thought process, there's a concentration, focus, cognitive effort, and even right now as you listen to me, I may say something that's not entirely clear, or even if it is clear, people are saying things that are complicated. So we are always dedicating much of our cognitive attention to understanding what is being said. And that is just like everybody else in the room. On the other hand, well, let me show you a video that I happened to hear. Maybe some of you have heard this. What happened here is that this is a joke video where this person made believe that because of the pandemic, the government decided that we had to replace all P's and K's, these explosive sounds, with sounds that are softer. So in this case, he's going to say something where he replaces the P's with F's. Let's take a listen, and I hope I got my...
Anyone speaking to other people in a public place will have to stop using the plosive sound. Failure to do so could lead to a fine or even prison.
Hope you're able to hear that. Yeah, were you able to hear that? So we could hear that it would lead to a fine or even prison. We hear the P. And that takes a cognitive effort. So there's all of this effort in being able to decipher what is actually being said. But then, and that's just like everybody else in the room. However, we are also dedicating a lot of attention, a lot of focus into actually putting that into another language. Of course, and that is very hard. Everybody can understand that that's very hard, but it sort of needs to be explained to them. And then the third part is that we are listening to our own voice to check it. And I might say something like, I have 3 points to make today, and then I realize I meant to say 2, but it's only when I hear myself say 3 that I realize I misspoke, and I correct it. I mean I have 2 points. So there is this constant monitoring going on, and this is a huge cognitive load. So our cognitive load is distributed over 3 major tasks, along with all the others that you can imagine, running the microphone, and etc., the volume. So again, my feeling is that if people understand why, we're not being prima donnas, we're not having some kind of a mysterious problem, it's just that we need greater quality of sound. So those are my points on that. And I thought that we, along the lines that Sheila was mentioning, we need to be able to educate people. And she said we could use humor. And I remember the anti-littering campaigns that she's talking about. There was a song, "Don't Be a Litter Bug." So it was sort of actually, there was a bit of a shaming going along. And so I have a little bit of an idea. We could say, because what's happening is for some reason, people think that when you're at home, there's this informality that just takes over. just takes over. It's incredible. They come with a phone that's shaking all around. They come in all of these very strange ways, and they are, well, actually, I have one little thing to show, but it's not that important. But anyway, we could say that poor sound is the new spaghetti sauce stain on your white shirt. Would you walk into a meeting in a white shirt with a huge red spot with a spaghetti you had the day before? We could say that poor lighting is the new pimple on the tip of your nose, sort of making people realize that they look bad. Having a shaking phone or something like that is like arriving 15 minutes late and slamming the door. And people need to realize that they don't look professional. They don't look good. And if they are more aware of that, and this is more with the actual education that has to be done with the people speaking, and then we also need to put across to them, which is something that the prior speakers also said, what are the consequences of this bad sound? We have fatigued, stressed interpreters struggling to provide their usual high quality, and acoustic shock. And as I think it was Andrea who said, it really is a bit of an epidemic. There are a lot of interpreters coming to me saying that they've really had a terrible episode, that they have pain in their ears, they have trouble sleeping, etc. This is not right. It's not right, and we should not have to be damaging our health and our hearing because of bad sound. So, thank you very much, and that's what I would have to say.